Some of the best moments as a parent was watching my children grow up with the joy and happiness and anticipation of the upcoming holiday season. And having an advent calendar is a large part of that. Watching them count down the days and get the little treats out of the advent calendar as they counted them down. So this year I decided to create a little advent calendar for my grandson. And I did it by using some everyday items from the Dollar Tree. So come along with me on this little video tutorial on how I created this cute little advent calendar. So here are a few of the items you're going to need to create this advent calendar. Some of them I got at the Dollar Tree and others I got at Michael's and Home Depot. So here are some other tools you're going to need, as well as a couple of other items that did not make that first list. I'm using a leftover piece of hardboard that I had, but you can use any sort of board that you need to for this project. So I'm starting off by measuring and marking and then setting up all of my letters and my little tubs to make sure that I have the right spacing for all of these items. I laid out all my tubs and then I sprayed them with this black chalkboard paint. This took several layers because trying to get all of the sides evenly coated on this was a little bit hard when they're lined up in this order. I let the paint dry between coats and I gave it several coats, I would say probably about 4 coats of black chalk paint. While I was waiting for the chalk paint to dry, I drilled 2 holes at the top of the board for my hanger. I'm using some red acrylic paint to paint my board because I think the red will be a nice pop of color against the black chalkboard tubs and the silver letters that I'm going to put on. And I simply brushed it on and I left it a little bit dry brushed because I want it to look a little bit antiqued. For my hanger, I'm using wooden beads and I'm going to alternate between black, red, and neutral. And so here I'm just painting them by hand, and I simply put the little wooden bead on a brush and spin it around and paint it. I just find that's easier than trying to spray paint them. Next, I needed to remove these little clothespins from the back of these chalkboard signs, so we took a little bit of a chisel and just hammered them down between the clothespin and the sign, and they popped right off. And then all we had to do was just clean off a little bit of the glue from the back to make it nice and flat. Then I simply took a Sharpie white paint pen and wrote the numbers 1 through 25 on these little placards. Next, I'm going to take this hook and loop tape adhesives and put them on the lids so that we can put on our numbered placards and our ornaments later. You'll need about 4 packages of the hook and loop tape adhesives because you'll use about twice as many of the loops, because you'll use 1 on the numbers and then 1 set on the ornaments. Simply add one of these dots on the back of the placard now and it will stick to the lid, and it'll be interchangeable with the ornament, as I'll show you later. So I found these little wooden ornaments at the Dollar Tree and they came about 12 to a package, and they were cute on their own, but I really wanted to dress them up a little bit, so I'm using some red acrylic paint and just painting, you'll see here on the candy canes, and giving them a little bit of red. And I did this to all of the ornaments, just painted them and dressed them up a little bit. And I also took off the little sticky adhesive on the back because I'm going to replace that with the hook and loop tape. I also used a little gold paint pen here just to paint the bow and give it a little sparkle. I'm using these wooden letters that I got from the Dollar Tree. There are a package of 26 and spray painting them silver. So now I have all my little ornaments painted and my little tubs are painted and my numbers are on the tub. And now I'm just getting ready to fill the tubs with the ornaments and the little goodies. But first I also have to add that hook and loop tape to these ornaments so that they will stick onto the front of the lid after the numbers are removed. So I'll simply put one of these little hook and loop tabs on the back of each of these ornaments. Once I have the ornaments all set, all I do is load up one of the ornaments and a little treat and close it all back into my little tub. So here's how it's going to work. They're going to take off the lid and get their little treat and then take out the ornament. And then all they do is simply remove the number from the front of the lid and put it back into the little tub so they can reuse it again next year. And then put the lid back on and then add your little ornaments so you have a cute little ornament, and these will count down the days until Christmas. Now I'm just going to finish off the hanger, and I'm just threading some black, red, and natural wooden beads onto some wired twine. And I just have a little bit of tape on the end of that twine just to make those beads slide on a little bit easier. I decided I didn't really like that raw edge on the hardboard, so at the last minute I decided to add a little bit of this dollar store twine rope that they have there, and I simply hot glued it all along the edges of the hardboard. It was a little tricky getting this glue onto this thin edge of the hardboard, but I went along kind of slow and simply added a little bit of glue and then only worked in about 3-inch increments. As I got to the end, I just again put a little bit of glue and glued my last few inches of rope onto the hardboard. I simply clipped off the rope right at the very end so that it was even, and then I wanted to add a little bit of hot glue at the end of the rope just to make sure that the rope did not unravel. Next I went back and checked everything, and if it was a little bit loose, I added a little bit more glue on the back side just to make sure that the rope would stick to the edge of the hardboard. Now I'm going to add my beaded twine to my board, and I'm simply taking that little bit of twine and threading it from the back to the front and then securing it to itself by bringing it back up and wrapping it around the twine so I had a nice secure hold. Then I took a little bit of hot glue and added it to the end of the twine just to make sure it was secure and to keep it from unraveling from the wire. Next, I laid out my letters and spaced them out accordingly, and then simply hot glued them onto the board. I placed my letters on top of the straight edge so that I could make sure that everything was even and spaced properly. Next, I took my tubs and I spaced them all out on my board to make sure that I had enough clearance and that everything was going to line up properly. And I used a combination of E6000 and hot glue to put these tubs down. I wanted to make sure that they were going to stay on the board because they do get pulled upon to get the lids off and get the treats out. So I used 2 dots of E6000 on opposite corners, and on the diagonal corners on the other way I used 2 dollops of hot glue and then placed my tubs on the board. Once I got my horizontal row laid out and glued, I worked on the vertical rows. And that first row, once I get the first row horizontally and vertically laid out, it was a lot easier just to make sure that everything else was laid out properly as well. Finally, I took a little bit of buffalo check ribbon and threaded it underneath the wired twine and simply put a little bow at each of the attachment points of the wired twine. I originally took all of the Velcro numbers off because they weren't exactly even on this lid and they were throwing me off on my look of making sure everything was even, and now I'm just adding them back onto each of the tubs. And now let's take a look at how our little advent calendar turned out. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial on how I created this cute little advent calendar for my grandson. I would show it to you here, but I actually had to ship it off already, so it's in the mail on the way to him, ready for him to count down. I hope you're able to get some great ideas for your advent calendar out of this and create something for your special little loved ones that are counting down the days. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button. Until the next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.